All right. So I'm really glad you are joining me here today for the Stressless Success workshop. I know how important it is that we take care of ourselves, that we make a difference in how we're doing, and that we really do try to take the best care of ourselves possible, because I know how hard it can be sometimes to make time for ourselves, because it's so easy to spend all of our time and all of our resources taking care of other people. So, maybe that is something that you can relate to. Um, it's something that you maybe have experienced even in your own life. And today we are going to do a combination of things. So we're going to start with just some good techniques for making sure that you are taking care of yourself and that you are kind of taking that time to ground in and focus. And these are techniques that you can then do anytime. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the latest research out there about stress and burnout and its link to creativity and well-being. And then finally, I'm going to share a little bit more about some other ways that you can keep learning more and keep working with me if this is something that you are interested in doing more of. So we will go ahead and get started now. And we're going to start off with a breath exercise. And you might say, why do I want to do that? Or don't feel comfortable doing it? Well, the reason we want to do this is because a lot of times when we are very stressed out, you really disembody and we start living what I like to call from the neck up. So we're really consumed by our thoughts, but we have numbed out and disconnected from our body. But if we want to really deactivate the stress response, we've got to do some somatic work, which means we've got to get into that body. So breath work is a very quick way to feel into your body, to really connect with all of the systems in your body, to tap into how you're feeling. And also, when we slow our breath down, we are rewiring our nervous system to go from that fight or flight stress response mode to what's called the rest and digest. So we're telling it to turn on the part that lets us feel centered and grounded, but also lets us heal. So we're going to start with what is called a 3-part breath. This is one of the easiest types of breath work that you can do, which is why I always teach it first, because it is a simple one to do. So you start by simply putting your hands on your thighs. Maybe you want to rub your thighs a little bit. If you're sitting down, that's a soothing motion that helps you to feel better. And you can close your eyes, or if you don't want to close your eyes, stare at a fixed point. So find something that you can softly gaze at and focus on. And the way that it's going to work is we're going to just take in 2 breaths. And when you breathe, I want you to poof out your belly. And the reason you want to do that, even though we don't have lungs down there, we do have lungs that go all the way down to the bottom of your rib cage. So you can feel where that last rib is. When you poof out your belly, when you breathe, you fully expand your diaphragm. So you let the air go all the way down, because that's another thing we do when we are stressed is we only breathe in the top part of our lungs, those shallower breaths. So we're going to breathe in halfway and then poof out our bellies and breathe in all the way to the bottom. We're going to hold for 2, and then we're going to breathe out. And we're going to do a few cycles of that just to kind of get you grounded in and really ready to focus and listen and feel a little bit more settled down. So let's go ahead and start. And I will breathe extra loud just so you can follow along. You do not have to breathe this loud because I want this to be something you could even do at work. So don't think you have to breathe loud like I am, but let's go ahead and get started. So through the nose, hold, and then out. All right, so we did that for about 30 seconds. I would recommend doing it for up to a minute and really letting yourself get focused in and grounded in. Another great thing that you can do if you feel stressed out is you can just do a forward fold. When your head is lower than your heart, that's also something that cues your body that it can relax. So again, when we're stressed out, just saying, I need to calm down, we all know that's not going to work. It's probably going to make us more stressed because then we're going to focus on the fact that we can't calm down. But when we use these somatic techniques where we are outwardly telling our body that it's safe and that it can calm down, it really does help to actually turn off that stress response. And remember, these are things that you can do absolutely anywhere. So you can do it at work, you can do it while you're driving. I mean, you definitely can plug into this as much as you need to in order to calm yourself down, get your heart and your brain waves in what's called a state of coherence. So for those of you who may not know me, my name is Angela Mazzi, and I have been an architect for over 25 years now. I'm a partner at a firm called GBBN, and I work specifically on healthcare projects. And really from the beginning of my career, I have always had a sensitivity to the fact that space felt like something. And it drew me to classes like the psychology of habitation and history and theory classes. And what I love about being an architect is understanding how and why people use space and what they have evolved space to do for them. And of course, with the advent of the digital age and air conditioning and a lot of modern conveniences, we've lost touch with how space makes us feel because, again, we're sort of manipulating our environment or checking out of it with distractions. So we haven't been as mindful, but that is something that my work very much focuses on, which, of course, doing health care work also means that I have taken a lot of time to research stress because stress is very connected to how quickly we can heal and our physical and mental states. So I've done a lot of research on this work. So when I'm talking about these things, I'm not just sharing my opinion or something I heard on a podcast. This is something I have published peer-reviewed journal articles on, and I have spoken literally all over the world. I just got back from a trip to Switzerland where I talked about the design health axis at the Swiss Center for Design and Health. So I've got a deep background in this, but I also know what it's like to work full time. I know what it's like to work in a creative profession. how it can be tough to deal with office politics, how it can be tough to deal with client demands, and especially how in our AEC industry, where there can be a lot of systemic codependency going on. And we kind of get trained from when we are in school, and it gets perpetuated throughout our careers, this idea that we have to be perfect, that we have to overperform, that we have to do whatever it takes to be liked, even if it means we don't necessarily always feel that we are getting our own needs met, that we need to compare ourselves to other people all the time, and that we have to get approval at any cost. So these are all things that probably you can relate to and probably have experienced at least once during your career. And they kind of perpetuate through, and they lead us to believe that work-life balance is a myth, or that we have to leave our jobs in order to feel good, or only work part-time, or that we can't really have the career that we want to have. And that just isn't really true. And while I don't have it perfect yet, I don't think any of us ever will, I have really consciously in my career tried to practice differently. And I can tell you that I've had a lot of success on my terms, choosing to do the things that matter to me and not falling as much. I mean, I still catch myself, I still have to work, and I'm still learning new things all the time too, but being more conscious of when I'm getting into that stress trap and getting thrown out of balance, and using a lot of the things I'm going to talk to you about today to get out of it. Because not only is stress unhealthy for our physical and mental state, but it leads to burnout when stress is chronic. And, it's really sad to me, because as an architect, you wouldn't design a building that didn't meet code. You wouldn't allow your client to make a really bad decision. You would help them understand the pros and cons of what they were doing and guide them to what was going to serve them best. Yet when it comes to our own careers and our own health and well-being, we don't take nearly that much care. And I want you to be as much of an advocate for your well-being and your why, so you can have a meaningful, purposeful career that feeds your soul, as you are for your buildings, because you are more important than the buildings, right? The buildings are there for the people, and you are one of those people. And there was a lot of work recently, especially with the pandemic, on this idea of burnout, but I don't think we always appreciate just how toxic it is. So in 2021, Monograph did a survey that showed that 96.6% of architects, that is a staggering number, right, reported experiencing burnout. And they said this wasn't caused by the coronavirus, although that made things worse. But what they said caused the burnout are some pretty typical things. So you might be thinking, yeah, this is me, right? A heavy workload, working long hours, including off the clock hours, when you feel that pressure to get something done and you feel like you can't build the time even. Limited control over your work with a lot of dependencies. So feeling like you're going to get all of the blame, but none of the credit, and you can't really set up those situations for success. So if you experience this a lot, not only does it cause stress, but over time, it causes burnout. And more universally, burnout happens when we don't feel supported, when we do a lot of work, more work than we can handle, and we don't have a network of people. So this is something, even if you're not an architect, if you're experiencing some of those things, you're definitely not at your best. And burnout is a really bad thing because it's not just, oh, get some rest and feel better. It actually builds on itself. There are 12 stages of burnout, all the way from stage 1, where you just feel a strong need to prove yourself because you think that if you work harder, you're going to snap out of it. And that's an easy one to relate to. And step 2, where you keep working harder and harder and trying to overcome things. Step 3, where you begin to neglect your own needs. And this begins to progress. And in the later stages, like in stage 10, you feel empty and numb inside. Stage 11, you start to become depressed. And stage 12, where you mentally and physically just shut down. So this is not something to be ignored. It is something very real, and that science is discovering more and more about. And it's really a problem because it doesn't just hurt us physically, as if that isn't bad enough. But why are we working so hard? We're working so hard because we want to make things, we want to do things, we want to build things. Yet our lifestyle and our work environment is creating conditions that are actually undermining our creativity. And if you think about this, creativity is at the core of what we do. But what is creative? Creative is generative, right? It's an act of generosity. It involves giving of resources. And that just can't happen when your resources are being depleted. And it's taking a toll. So I want you to think about how many times during the day you are being diverted from doing creative work and instead feeling like you have to do depleting work, demanding work that's not creative. What proportion of your day is that? Do you ever feel like you can handle it or feel on top of it? So if you can't get to at least 20 or 30% of your day being these creative, generative activities, you're heading down a road to be depleted. So it's really important to be mindful of that, and not saying that the parts of your job that maybe you don't love, you get to just never do and get a hall pass, but more that they shouldn't be all that your work is about. Your work should still be giving you those opportunities. And that's just so important. Even surveys done by Gallup on the state of the global workplace are saying that we feel stressed out at work. Employee stress causes low engagement, lack of focus and productivity, poor performance, and an increase in absence. And the trend that you might have read about called quiet quitting, where you show up, but you're looking to do the least amount possible. So that's not creative, right? That's not how we really want to show up, but it's how the stress we're under is leading us to show up. And it even goes into things like our fascia. So there's been a lot of medical research lately on fascia, which is otherwise known as connective tissue. And fascia wraps around all of our organs, all of our muscles. It also is embedded into our cellular structure. So our fascia, as we are learning through latest medical research, it's not just holding things together, but it is actually transmitting information. And a lot of that information is emotional encoding. So when we feel stressed out, when we haven't been taking care of ourselves, our fascia are building up toxins, and that is slowly beginning to rewire our genetics. It's also having a big impact on our immediate health, and it also can affect the aging process. And that is important because I like to talk about us having 4 bodies. So we know we have a physical body, we can see it, feel it, touch it, but part of our physical body is an endocrine system and our fascia system. And our endocrine system releases hormones. Those hormones are tied to our emotions, and they impact all of our body systems. We have 12 different body systems, all of which can be impacted when we have negative emotions that cause stress, when we have cortisol and adrenaline flooding our system, or when we have positive emotions like dopamine and oxytocin running through our system. So it really is tied to our well-being. And a lot of it is also tied to our mental body and our spiritual body. So it can be as simple as in our spiritual body, this is where our beliefs are formed. And while there certainly are religious beliefs, we have a lot of other beliefs that are not religious, but that still impact us. And a belief is nothing more than something that you don't question being true. However, a lot of our beliefs really are not very grounded. We may have been taught it as a child from someone else we knew, loved, or trusted who also believed that, or we may have caught it. In other words, we put it together based on deductions we made about cause and effect. Like, for example, my dad works really hard to get ahead, and that means he's never home. So therefore, to be successful, I have to work really hard, and I have to choose between a career and my family. And I don't want to do that because I've now got the belief that work and success mean that I don't get to have anything else in my life. And I don't want that. I don't like that. So I'm always going to sabotage myself. So you can see how those beliefs are starting to derail your success. So that is our spiritual body generating those beliefs. But then we go from belief to thought. And our thoughts then start to inform how we feel, because as we start to think about situations, we have a reaction to them that is emotional, and it can run the gamut, but there's always some reaction. So when we have those reactions, it is actually impacting all of our endocrine system, which in turn is impacting our physical body. So there's a lot going on there, and it works both ways. So when we don't take care of our physical body, when we don't get enough sleep, when we don't eat well, when we don't move, we are then creating a negative cycle up the chain. So a lot of the time, feeling exhausted, when we don't have enough sleep, we're wired and tired, and then we can't relax. We're too keyed up. And if you've ever experienced that, that is a sign, a symptom of the stress and of the burnout. So when that happens, now you continue to be sleep deprived. Well, studies have shown that when you are sleep deprived, you are as impaired when you're driving as a drunk driver. Think about that. How much just being sleep deprived is impacting your cognitive function, how much it is impacting your ability to make good decisions, your reaction times. All of that is getting impacted, which is then working its way up the chain. So that's why it's so important that we begin to reframe some of the stressful situations that we face. And what I love to teach about stress is a lot of our stress is coming because we're either worrying about the past, reliving it, getting upset about what didn't happen that we wished would have happened, or woulda, shoulda, coulda, or being angry because someone did or didn't do something. Or our stress is coming from anxiety because we're not sure how the future is going to play out, and we're running all these doomsday scenarios because we're worried about it. But the truth is that our brain really cannot distinguish between how we feel and what we imagine and what we actually physically experience. And that's why you see a lot of athletes, they will do visioning exercises. Well, the visioning exercise is allowing them to imagine a successful outcome, and their body doesn't know the difference. So they're kind of training their brain how to feel, what to look for, how it's going to move, right? They're imagining all of this so that then when they go to do it, their body is like, I got this. I know this. Yeah, I got this. And research has really backed this up, because it's shown that you may not be actually facing a stressful situation right now in this moment, but just simply worrying about something and feeling that stress, your body does activate the whole stress response. And if you don't really know what the stress response does, I'm going to give you a quick overview right here. So the stress response is designed to keep us safe, pure and simple. So if your body senses danger, and remember, we evolved to have to survive in a physical world that was fraught with physical dangers. So there could be predators on the loose, there could be dangerous conditions in the environment, there could be scarcities of things. So our senses would pick up a danger, and then our body would have a physical response to allow us to either fight off the danger, get away from the danger, freeze in place so that we could avoid the danger, or fawn so that we could appeal to the danger. And so that stress response is very physical, because we're supposed to be taking a physical action. And it includes things like all the blood rushing to your arms and legs, your immune system shutting down, your digestive system shutting down, your heart rate going up, your blood vessels dilating, your breathing getting faster, higher levels of thought shutting down. Now, when we actually had a physical danger, the beauty of the design of the human body is that the movement, the response, the physical response burned off all of the cortisol and adrenaline that were triggering that stress response, and we reset back to normal. However, in the modern world, most of the things that cause us stress, and remember, stress is a feeling that we are in danger, are not physical threats. So there's nothing to fight. So instead of that response being temporary and us being able to take some physical action that will dissipate it, it happens to us and we sit with it. And it happens to us chronically, not just once in a while. And even when it's not happening to us, we're thinking about it. So our body thinks that we are in physical danger. And all of this causes, as you could imagine, long-term, having all of those systems turned on and off that way like it is set up for the stress response, is going to cause long-term physical and mental problems. So you may have digestive issues, gut health issues. You may have high blood pressure. You may have anxiety or PTSD or depression. You may notice that you have brain fog, that it's a lot harder to get things done or to think clearly or to remember things. And over time, this can lead to even worse health conditions like diabetes and cancer and obesity. So we definitely need to take that stress response seriously. And we need to understand that it isn't always the things we're aware of that are causing us stress, but the worrying about them or the perceptions or the feelings that we are not safe that can cause us stress. And the only way to get out of that is to radically redefine how we look at the things that cause us stress, and to understand that stress is not directly correlated to time that we spend doing a task or accomplishing a certain career milestone or getting the validation or the approval from somebody else in order to feel good about ourselves. And I know I spent a lot of the early years of my life, definitely in the early years of my career, never quite feeling good enough. So, I grew up in a family that has an Italian heritage, and I'm only a second generation American. So there was a lot of pressure that my family put, not just on me, but on others too, that we had to achieve and we had to be good enough. And my mother and my grandparents firsthand experienced a lot of discrimination because people didn't want immigrants around. They were called dirty, they were called stupid. And the family worked very hard to prove to people that they were not that. You could have gone to my grandparents' house and everything was always immaculate and perfect because they'd internalized all of that criticism, and they were busy proving to everybody that they were in fact not that they were just as good, that they could do things, that they deserved to have what they had, that they worked hard. And as you can imagine, that begins to get embedded in the psyche. And I remember my mother always pushing me if I didn't get straight A's. Why didn't I get straight A's? And when I accomplished something, that was great. And she was proud of me. But then it was, what's next? What more can you do? What more can you be? And so remember, those beliefs get formed as much by what we're taught as what we put together. And so I then have spent a lot of my early years feeling that, one, no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. So I had to keep doing more. I had to keep proving myself that I was only as good as the last accomplishment. So I spent a lot of time chasing validation. But also, if you feel like you're never good enough, you also start to compare yourself to other people a whole lot, because you start to say, well, that person got what I'm supposed to want, and this is what they showed up looking like, right? These are the actions they took. These are the things they accomplished. So if I can do what they're doing, then I should be able to get where they are. And creating all these categories, right? And of course, as you can imagine, it's never that linear. And success doesn't look like what it looks like for your friend or another person you know, or what it looked like for your uncle or your boss. It doesn't. It looks like what it looks like for you. And so I would try to do in the early years of my career what I saw, quote unquote, successful people doing. I was sizing up everybody all the time, saying, am I good enough? Am I good enough? Can I do it like they do it? What are they doing that I'm not doing? And yet that wasn't getting me the success that I really wanted. It was just making me feel bad about myself when I didn't get those things. And what I really had to learn, and I want to talk about today, is that success comes when you feel good about what you're doing, when the work you're doing is meaningful and purposeful, and other people notice that and reward you for that because they see your passion. They see your no matter what attitude. They see your energy and your resourcefulness and your creativity and your resilience, because you don't stop if something doesn't work out. You don't take a no as being shut down. You take a no as a not yet, because you have the conviction behind what you're doing. And you're not saying, look at me, did I earn my prize yet? You're saying, come with me, because this is really exciting. And this thing that I am so lit up about, it's bigger than me. It's more important than my ego. It is something that's cause. It is something that is a movement. It is something that is going to make a difference. And it's going to take more than just me to be able to do it. I'm just one voice. And when I started to do that, when I started to really stop worrying about whether or not I was a project manager and then becoming a project manager and then hating becoming a project manager and worrying about whether I was getting promoted or not promoted, and just started focusing on the research work I love so much and educating my clients on why they needed to think about well-being in design and how to design for well-being, all of a sudden, I could let go of all of that pushing energy that is so aggressive, because when we're pushing, it's because we feel threatened. And when we feel threatened, we're in that stress response. On the other hand, when I could just do the things I love to do, and I wasn't doing them 100% of the workday, but again, getting just that 20 or 30% of time a day into that effort, all of a sudden I wasn't stressed out. All of a sudden I was excited and I was energized, and it felt like there was meaning and value and purpose in what I was doing. And I wanted to share it, and I wanted to collaborate, and I wanted to amplify it. Not worry about myself, worry about the cause, the greater purpose, the greater meaning. So one, people could very clearly understand what I loved, what I wanted to do, what I was known for. They could start to see me as a go-to person for that issue. And my career took off. I not only finally got the promotions I wanted, but I started getting speaking opportunities. I was encouraged to apply for fellowships in ACHA and the AIA. I have now reached a point where I get invited to speak and paid to speak about the things I love. I was just at a grand opening for a behavioral health project that I worked on, and it felt so good to have all of the doctors and the nurses there giving tours and talking about me and saying thank you, because you helped bring our vision to reality. And we're so excited to move into this building, and this is going to be such a game changer for our patients. And when we feel like that, when the work we do is something that we get to do, I mean, I feel it is such a privilege to get to work at this level and get to do these things and to have this impact. That's a big shift than when we are talking about work that we have to do, because the work that we have to do is draining and depleting. And we worry about the consequences of not getting it done. And we trigger this whole stress response and we trigger this burnout that eventually comes because we're never going to get there, right? No matter how much we do the busy work, we're never going to get there. And if we let that be what holds us back, then we never get to experience the meaningfulness and the joy that comes when we get to do work we love. And the work we love is the key to our success, not the busy work. And I wrote a whole book on how we can shift time management ideas away from to-do lists, away from trying to multitask and go all the time. And instead, just reprioritize our day to keep things within our bandwidth, to prioritize the things that really matter, and to really kind of find the time that you might not have believed was actually there in your day so that you can focus on more and more of the things that, one, get you grounded, like we worked on initially, the things that help you get the clarity, that help you calm down, that regulate your nervous system and let you be in that place of creativity. And then you are making time to do things that will fuel that creativity, those powerful, powerful works. So that Time Builder book was just a stepping off point to really starting to think about, well, why do we care about time management? It isn't just about stress. It is also about getting to success, and success on our terms. Success where work and life feel integrated and you never feel that you have to choose between one or the other, and that you have to make work a priority if you want to get ahead, but then feel bad because you may not be making your family a priority, or feel guilty enough that you make your family a priority that you've long since given up on having a meaningful or purposeful career. And we don't want that, because the work that we're here to do is so important. You're not going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to do what the next person is going to do, but all of us are here to make a difference. All of us have talents and abilities that we want to express, that we need to express in order to feel actualized. So when you stuff those down and you say they don't matter and you numb out, now your work is really just trading dollars for hours, and that doesn't feel meaningful. That doesn't feel rewarding. That doesn't make you feel great and excited to go to work every day. So it's adding to your stress. And if the things you have to do involve a lot of other stressful activities, like more work than you can handle, unhappy clients that are complaining, trying to keep someone who's unhappy at work from quitting, dealing with all of these things that can be so tough, having hard talks with someone who isn't performing, all of that can overwhelm us then, because it is so stressful and so overwhelming, because there's nothing else to offset it. And it's leading us down this road of not prioritizing our well-being, which is depleting our creativity, which is making it even harder for us to feel like we can rise to the occasion in these moments and find a more innovative way to do things, to find a better way to make it through, to find a way to do the work that's going to matter to us. So I'm hoping that you're starting to see here how this can all start to kind of build upon itself and make that connection for us. So I want to play a little game here, do some exercises. I want you to think about what would be success for you as an end game. And I want you to complete this sentence. I will be successful when. And you can fill in that blank with whatever comes to your head. I will be successful when I earn a certain amount of money, or I will be successful when I have a certain title, or I will be successful when I achieve a certain thing or things. So I want you to take some time and think about that and write that down. I will be successful when. And then once you have that idea, what I want to highlight about whatever you wrote down is how you are putting your success in the future. So rather than believe you can be successful now, you've put all these conditions on your success. So you're saying you don't deserve to be successful right now because your success is out there in the future. And you have put all of these things that you've got to do in order to be successful. And the thing with putting our success in the future is that you can do those things and it doesn't make you feel successful. You never get there because success is a state of mind, not a list of accomplishments, not a paycheck, not a title. So instead, I want you to think about how you want to feel and how you can feel that way now before you do all these things that you think you want to do. So why do you want that paycheck or that title or that achievement? How will it make you feel? And for a lot of people, believe it or not, what comes up is freedom. I will have more freedom. Why do they think they're going to have more freedom? Because it's actually a myth, right? If they got the promotion and the raise and got these different accolades, they probably would have less freedom because they would have to work harder to maintain it, right? And keep doing more things because it would still feel empty. So they're not really going to get this freedom that they are chasing so badly. On the other hand, you can right now, today, have a whole lot more freedom in your life by just making different decisions and putting boundaries in place. So what kind of freedom do you want? Do you want the freedom to explore? Well, what are things in your local community that you could explore? When was the last time you went to the ballet or a show or a museum? When was the last time you took a walk in nature? When was the last time you tried to learn a new skill? Like, right, there's lots of ways that we can discover and enrich ourselves and find freedom that way. Maybe you like to have an hour every day that's just me time, where you can do whatever you want. And whatever you want might look like reading a book, taking a bath, but you're going to enforce that me time. Maybe you're going to go get a massage, sit in the sun and feel the sun on your face. But basically, you are creating that freedom for yourself right now. You are allowing your body to feel that freedom right now, because the body keeps score of everything. I've talked about how the body processes stress and processes beliefs, but want to go a little bit deeper to the density of all that, and how when we can change how we feel all the time, we can start to notice things that cause us to not feel so good. And because we can notice these things, we can be a lot clearer on it. So, like, I notice if I feel sad, I will have a little bit of tingling along the edge of my left hand, that'll be something that is a physical response. Maybe you notice when you are stressed out that you feel tightness in your chest, and that's your cue. Notice if you have any chronic aches and pains. Like, do you have a backache all the time? Do your wrists hurt? Do your knees hurt? Like, where are you feeling discomfort in your body? Where's that coming from? And thinking about when we can switch to positive emotions, when we can feel better, when we can feel into that space, we can correct that. So a lot of times when we have a backache, yes, we can literally have maybe tried to lift something too heavy, or be sitting in a bad chair, or have bad posture, or not moved enough. But we can also just feel loaded down. And if we feel better, if we feel more euphoric about what we're doing, the backache kind of goes away. So start noticing how you feel right now. And you can even write down some of the ways you feel good. Like, maybe you feel really high energy right now, or maybe you have an allergy issue right now. Maybe you have an ache or a pain. So just notice how you feel right now, and try to notice over the next few days when you feel good, when you feel bad. And if you start to also change some of your habits and routines, how does that start to impact how you feel? So notice when you're doing these different activities, like maybe you decide that you are going to wake up a half hour early and exercise and meditate. Maybe you decide you're only going to take a half hour lunch so that you can leave earlier. Maybe you're going to reset your work day so that you don't start work until late morning, but you work into the evening. But all of these things are going to give you more freedom. And with that freedom, you're going to do things that make you more excited. So as you start doing that, how does that feel in your body? And the next exercise I want to give you is, I want to ask you what you are doing to be fine. So people will ask you how you're feeling, and you might say, I'm feeling fine. So what are you doing to be fine? What are some of the things that you are tolerating in order to be fine? Because these are also things that are impinging on that feeling of freedom, that feeling of power. That's often what we really want when we say we want to be successful. We think of the things that will make us successful, will empower us, will give us freedom. So what are you tolerating right now? What are you making fine? What is your body enduring and holding and keeping score around that could change? You know, maybe you could give your kids more responsibilities, so you had less to do in terms of errands or housework. Maybe you could start to train someone else at work to do parts of your job so you didn't have as big of a workload. Maybe you could ask for help with more things more often. Maybe you could get rid of that couch that your mother-in-law bought you because you don't like it and you're sick of looking at it, and it's creating a negative reaction every time you look at it. But think about all the ways that you are tolerating things and making things fine when it doesn't really feel good in your body. And you can write some of those things down and really try to notice also how you cope with them. So are you drinking a lot of caffeine so that you can keep going and push yourself? Are you giving up a good routine for exercise or meditation so that you can squeeze in more of these things you're only tolerating because it feels like they have to be more important and they really don't, and we can reset that. So think about what you are tolerating right now and what you are ready to say goodbye to. So I want you to write down, I'm ready to say goodbye to. And it could be a lot of things. One thing I said goodbye to years ago that has been huge for me is I said goodbye to morning chaos because I'm not a morning person. So I would always get up as late as I possibly could, trying to get kids ready, trying to get myself ready, trying to look at my calendar, see what's going on for the day. And I would arrive at work already frazzled. I said goodbye to morning chaos. And what did that mean? Well, it didn't mean just because I didn't want it anymore, it went away, right? It meant I had to make some changes. So I chose to get up, let's see, like over 2 hours before I even need to leave for work. But why would I do that, right? At first, it felt really hard because I thought I could sleep an extra hour. Why am I making this choice? But what did it do for me? Well, getting up those 2 hours before I needed to leave meant that the whole first hour I was awake, I didn't have to worry about anyone else in the house being awake. I didn't have to worry about getting dressed or doing my hair or putting on makeup. Instead, I could get up, put a pot of coffee on, do a meditation, get my cup of coffee, write in my journal, do some things to relax, do a little bit of exercise, get everybody up and start getting ready for work. So it reset my whole day to say that I was ready to say goodbye to morning chaos. And it only took an extra hour. And yet those activities, those were grounding. They helped me start my day with positive intent that helped me think about what was possible, what I wanted, instead of worrying about what was going to happen or dreading what I was going to walk into. It let me be in a whole different mindset. So I was ready to say goodbye to morning chaos. Think about what you're ready to say goodbye to. Are you ready to say goodbye to volunteering at too many activities? Are you ready to say goodbye to somebody treating you poorly? Are you ready to say goodbye to always being the one who has to pick up the pieces when something goes wrong? Are you ready to say goodbye to knowing that a repair needs to be done around your house and you just never get around to it? What is it and what will you change in order to do that? Because so much of what creates stress in our lives are bad habits that come from beliefs that we can let go of. But we can start to put in place good habits. And all that a habit is a shortcut that your brain takes. Our brain uses more calories and more energy than anything else in our body. Brain power is expensive in terms of its cost to our body. So any shortcut that can be made, our brain will make. So when we have a habit, we're putting something on autopilot so we don't have to think about it nearly as much. So if we can put some good things on autopilot, what could those be? And they can be routines that you want to introduce, but it also can be ways that you simplify your life. So studies of very creative people have shown that they've done things to simplify their life so they have more bandwidth left for creativity. So Steve Jobs wore literally the same pants and shirt every day. He had multiples, but he didn't make any decisions about dress. He just always wore the same things. Ernest Hemingway had very, very rigid habits about how he spent every part of his day, and he never deviated from it. So he didn't have to think a lot about daily routines and chores. He was able to free up that bandwidth for writing. And the list goes on. A lot of very creative people are surprisingly rigid in their lifestyle because they're trying to conserve that energy so that they can have more creativity and really put a wall and a boundary around the time they spend doing that creative work. So what habits would you like to form? And again, just saying I want to do something, that's a first step and that's good. But now we have to say, what are we going to take away in order to put this new habit in? Because if we've got too much going on, we're not going to get it done. We're not going to be able to implement the habit. It's going to feel too hard and we're going to stop. But if we reprioritize to make that new habit, then it works. So a lot of people come to me and say, I'd love to do whatever, but I'm too busy. And I always say in response, I'm too busy is code for that's not my priority. And a lot of times I will get some pushback of, what do you mean? I legit am too busy. I mean, I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to do that and I don't have a choice. So I don't know what you're talking about priority. These are things I have no choice. But the thing is, you probably have more of a choice than you think you do. And when you make something a different priority, when you say, I will do this no matter what, you will find that you can recalibrate a lot of the things that you thought were obligations in your life so that now you have the time to do it. But it takes starting with saying, what is that priority? What is that priority? And, you can spend your whole day putting out fires, right? Being in chaos, feeling obligated because you can't let something burn. Or you can prioritize building a fireproof shelter, right? And one is going to get you a whole lot further ahead than the other in terms of strategies. So whenever you say, I'm too busy, that's you being the firefighter all day. If we put a different strategy in, what can be the shelter that doesn't burn? So you don't have to put out some of those fires. How can we do things differently? What can we do? So we also want to think about how you can show up a little bit differently in life. Because you can have a lot of things that maybe you thought you wanted 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and you're still thinking about that. You're still feeling regret, or maybe every once in a while trying to half-heartedly do some things that will get you back to that place. And that's not success. It might have been how you defined success in the past, but are there things you can let go of now that are old priorities that aren't really serving you today, so that you have room for new priorities that are going to take you where you want to go today? A lot of people look at success as this very linear thing where there's milestone, 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 milestone. And so they think, if I'm at point A today, I need to have this path to get to point Z. And that's not really how it works, because when you get to B, you have a different advantage point than you did at point A. From that different vantage point, you can see things you couldn't from point A. And you may not want to go to C, you might want to go to B prime. So really give yourself permission to let go of old dreams that may not be serving you, and to look from the vantage point of where you are today to determine where you want to go next. Think about it like that. Think of it as 90-day chunks instead of a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. And trust your intuition. So I work with a lot of people who have been working for quite a while, they're mid-career or more, and they still don't trust their intuition. They still think that they have to put in a lot of effort in order to be successful, instead of trusting that they know. You know that you know that you know. And they don't give themselves the credit for what they're capable of, or they think that what they're good enough is somebody else's excellent. And they put so much effort into being perfect and achieving and achieving and achieving that they sometimes don't realize that a situation may not warrant that level of effort, right? I mean, you've heard the term, you don't shoot flies with a bazooka. Well, that's what happens as you begin to expand, as your expertise expands, as your knowledge expands. You can sometimes think you have to put the same amount of effort to solve a problem that you did 10 years ago when it was hard work. And you're not giving yourself permission to let it be easy. To say, what's the least amount of work I can do to get what I need? So why are you going to that client meeting? Do you need them to make certain decisions? What information do you show them that will help them make that decision? Don't do more work than that. What do you need for this deadline? What are the things that are important? If it's something around documenting certain conditions in the project, getting costs baked in, do that work. Don't do more than that. Don't overperform, because that is draining you. And that's creating some of that feeling that you're overloaded. So if we want to diffuse the stress response, we've got to get some things off our plate so we can spend more time doing that meaningful work. Because remember, those are two of the foundational parts of what causes stress and burnout, is having too much to do and not feeling like what you're doing is meaningful, right? Both of those things matter. So if we can find a way to do less ourselves, delegate more to others, let go of things that we don't need to do at all. How much are you doing that you just don't need to do? You could say no. You could stop doing it. And we use these techniques where we're reprioritizing. So more of our day is spent doing what's meaningful for us. Now, the last thing that we need to get rid of this stress response is a support network. Because when we don't feel supported, when we feel like we're just yelling into the wind all day, that can be a downer. That can be exhausting. And we're pushing and we're pushing and we're pushing to try to make what we want happen. Well, there's times when being a warrior has its place, but for the most part, when you are fighting, that's a stress response, right? Fight or flight. Fighting means you feel there is danger. What's the danger? The danger is you won't get what you want. The danger is someone might think less of you. The danger is you might be embarrassed, right? But again, our body perceives that it has the same stress response as if we were walking down a dark alley in a sketchy part of town, right? So we have to be really clear about what is making us feel unsafe and how we can build the support network to have the safety. So one, I've already talked a little bit about this idea that we get our ego out of it. It's not about us. So if you're afraid to present an idea, make it about the idea, not about you. So that then you can not be triggered if there's questions about the idea or the idea is not accepted. You don't take it personally because it's not about you, it's about the idea. But other ways is that we can start to empower other people. We can let go of that controlling, right? That's a big part of the codependency in our industry, creates so much stress. And we're controlling because we feel like we have to be perfect. And we're afraid of what's going to happen if we let somebody else do something. Well, if we let somebody else do something, I guarantee you they will not do what you would have done, but what they do might be better, or it might be good enough. Remember, let's go of that perfectionism. That's building a network. When we get out into the world, because we go to social functions, we go to professional events, we join professional organizations, we volunteer in a targeted way that matches our priorities. We're getting to know people. We're building in a resource bank. So you can call someone in your network and ask them a question about how they maybe handle this situation similar to something that you're dealing with right now. And you don't have to learn it the hard way. You can get opportunities from people who know you and will reach out to you, which will help you get where you want to go in terms of success. So build that supportive network, ask for help, empower people, train your replacements so that you have the time to do what you want to do, get the resources. Surviving stress has nothing to do with the amount of stress you have. It has to do with the amount of resources you have to cope. Now, this is a huge part of my research does something called salutogenesis, or design for well-being. And it actually is a term coined by a medical anthropologist who observed directly that people's ability to heal depended on their resources to cope. And he then built on that. So think of it like a video game, right? If you're playing Mario Brothers, you're collecting coins, but you're also encountering hazards as you make your way through a level. If you have a lot of coins and you hit a hazard, you could keep playing. But if you are very low on coins and you hit a hazard, you lose a life. You don't have the resources to cope. We see this in a public health and social justice aspect all the time in the news and in our communities. People who have a social and economic disadvantage are going to have a shorter lifespan. They're going to have a higher incidence of disease. Why is that? Because they don't have the resources to cope. It's one thing if your car breaks down and you only are inconvenienced by having to take it to the mechanic and pay for the repair. It's another thing when your car breaks down means you're going to lose your job because you can't get it fixed. Or your car breaking down means that you have to tell your kid that they can't do an after-school enrichment activity because you have to take the bus now and you can't pick them up. Or you can't afford to live somewhere that's safe, has access to healthy food, and has any stability in terms of housing, right? This is creating more stress in your life. It's depleting your resources. But if we look at our own lives, how many times are we not giving ourselves resources to cope? So you may be financially comfortable, you may live in a beautiful home, you may have a good job, but if you don't have the resources of a support network, you're still depleting yourself. You're still putting yourself at risk for bad things to happen to you because you're not resourcing yourself. So think about that and the resources that you have to cope and what you can put in place to build up that resource bank so that you are stronger and more able to encounter the situations that are inevitable, right? The things that are going to happen in life that are disappointing or tough to get through or draining, how we're going to give ourselves those resources. And often that comes in the form of a supportive network, both in the office, in your professional community, and in your personal life. And a supportive network can be things like hiring a cleaning service. And again, you don't have to be rich to do this. It's a priority thing, right? If having a cleaning service means that I get to spend more quality time with my family because I don't have to worry about scrubbing the toilets and mopping the floors, where's the time trade-off? What's worth it? If it means I get more rest so that I'm more patient with my kids and more creative at work, where's the trade-off? So always think about where you can find resources. And if you'd like to learn more about how you can find resources and what's available to you, if you've liked what you've heard today, and you're thinking, yeah, I'd like to learn more, I'd like to work with her, I did want to let you know that the doors are now open to Stressless Success Academy. So what you heard today was just a part of what you'll learn. This is an 8-week journey that we take together, and it really focuses on a lot of the topics that we hit today, but in much more depth. So we will look at things like, how do we recognize where the stress is happening? And how do we switch it off? What are some of those techniques? How do we reprioritize our day to make space for what matters? How do we cultivate that growth mindset? So a lot of creative people have a growth mindset, but we stunt it because we don't give ourselves the resources we need to pursue what we're really curious about. So this is about cultivating that growth mindset, feeding it so that we always want to evolve and grow. And we don't view new situations and new challenges as a threat. Because remember, anything you view as a threat is activating that stress response. We're going to talk about discovering your through line. So if you kind of spent a lot of your career taking the next step offered, but didn't have a lot of clarity on your why and your purpose, if you've been chasing the validation, you might find that you aren't really sure what success would look like for you. You aren't really sure what to want if it isn't what somebody told you you should want. So we spend some time talking about getting that clarity so that you can ask for the opportunities you want and reprioritize your time better. We're talking about taming the chaos. So chaos is a part of life, but a lot of times we don't have good boundaries. And we let ourselves get pulled in too many different directions. We allow too many things to distract us. And in the process, we just bleed our bandwidth dry so that we don't have the energy or the attention span to do the things we really want to do. So we're going to talk about that. And next thing is how to do more in less time. And yes, there really is a way. It isn't magic. These are a lot of high performance strategies that I go through with you and really help you focus. Most of us spend a large part of our day multitasking. Every time you switch tasks, you lose productivity. So if you were to multitask among 5 tasks in a day, you would only have spent that day 25% productive. So even though it feels like when we split our attention that we're being more productive, we're actually being less productive. So we're going to talk about some laser focused tactics and high performance strategies. We're going to talk about flow state. So when we can turn off that stress response, when we can activate that rest and digest parasympathetic nervous system, now we are in the state of receptivity to be our creative best. And when you're in flow state, because I know everybody has experienced it at least once, you know, there is no space, there is no time. You are energized by what you are doing, and it's exciting. And you don't feel frustrated. Even if you're trying something and it doesn't work and you have to try something else, you just kind of keep going. You just keep seeing the possibilities. You keep seeing the inevitability of success, not the things that are derailing you. And I love to make the analogy of riding a bike, right? You would never expect a child to get on a bike for the first time ever and just ride it. You would never say, well, you've seen people ride bikes. You know how to, you can see what you do. You sit on the bike and you pedal. No, we give them training wheels. We let them get comfortable learning how to operate the bike. Then we take the training wheels off and we expect them to fall and scrape their knees more than once. We don't say the very first time they fall, well, clearly the bike is dangerous. Never again. We are getting rid of it. This was a stupid idea. We accept the inevitability that the child will learn to ride the bike. So we don't see the process of learning as a problem. We don't see the failures and the setbacks as a reason to quit. We see that there is growth in the struggle, and that every time something new is learned, that eventually leads to being able to ride the bike. Well, this is the same idea. We can't keep derailing ourselves when we bump up against an obstacle or a failure and say, oh, I didn't get what I wanted. Danger, 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 never again. We need to keep going. We need to believe in the inevitability of our success. And then the last thing that we talk about is expecting abundance. And abundance isn't just about money. It is about giving yourself resources. So we're going to talk about all the different ways you can get resources. And also, it includes your title, your responsibilities, and your salary, because the value you bring to the company should be reflected in the value they provide to you. And when we don't ask for what we're worth, when we don't value ourselves, we can't expect anyone else to value us. And even if you had millions of dollars and didn't need to work, you would still be well served to negotiate for the highest salary you could get, even if you gave it all to charity, because it impacts how valuable you are viewed within the company. So these are all the different ways. We're going to deep dive on the stuff that I touched on today, but there's so much more. And I'm live with you for these calls. There is a recording if you can't make it, but this is not some pre-recorded thing. When we are live, we can have a dialogue. You can ask me questions. You can put comments in the chat. If you're getting stuck with something, you can let me know. But there's also an accountability. If you bought a class that was 8 modules and it was entirely self-directed, maybe when you first bought it, you might listen to the first module, and then what would happen? Life would get in the way, and you'd end up really never completing the class. So there's a certain accountability to a live format that I really like. You just have to block off this hour every week for 8 weeks, and you got it, right? You're getting through it. And then to make it even easier, I also have 8 meditations. So these are just 10 minutes. You can get up, listen to it first thing in the morning, and each one goes with one of the class themes to help your mind reset. So this is a really, really great system. It really does make a difference. People who have taken the class have seen a big shift in how good they feel, what they feel they can take on that they've always wanted to do, but never felt like they could. They're feeling less stress and more grace and ease in their day. They feel more comfortable expressing what they need and getting what they need from other people and having good, clean boundaries. They're less triggered emotionally. So it really is a big value. And right now through Monday, it is on special. So you can get the class for $450. It goes up to $600 after Monday. So if you're thinking you want it, don't hem and haw, don't wait. Trust your gut, trust your instincts. And there also are some really cool bonuses that are also here to encourage you to take fast action. So if you don't make a decision, you'll lose the bonuses. But the bonuses are 2 really good ones. One is wellness for the working world. So these are interviews that I did with different well-being experts and different topics that kind of go with the themes of the course and just give you a little bit more insight in how to do better self-care. So we talk about emotional eating, we talk about negative thinking, healthy sleep habits, nutrition to help rejuvenate and re-energize you, how to release stress and detox using some of these somatic techniques. We talk about anger management and emotional regulation. And finally, how to release stress and trauma with tapping. So these are all amazing sessions. You will learn so much. And what's more is that This is a separate class that you get for free, but I am always adding to the class. So when I first opened Wellness for the Working World, there were only 5 sessions. Now there are 7. So if you get this bonus, you also get any new interviews that I do. And the last bonus is my networking template. And this is a really great tool to help you understand how to build those resources of a network. And if you aren't sure how to do it, I touched on some of the things today, but I go in greater depth in this template. It is a PDF guide, so you can download it on your phone and you can have it whenever you need it. And it has some done for you things. So not only do I give you a little bit more information and some things to try, but I give you some language to use as conversation starters. And there is a whole email template to help you reach out to someone and build your network by making a contact out of them or possibly asking for their help or their mentorship. So the language is all there for you. And then in the sidebar, I actually explain why certain things are the way they are in the template, why that language is there. So you can write something from scratch on your own as well, and you'll understand the rationale behind it. So if you want to learn more about the class and get it, you just need to go to architectingpodcast.com/stressless. There is also a link right on the front page that you can go to and you can get it. And again, if you get it by Monday, you get the discount. It is normally a $600 class, so you will get it for $450, just because I really, really want to take a stand for the burnout and the overwhelm that too many people are experiencing. We can't keep doing this. We're killing ourselves. We are cheating our families out of our best selves. We are not giving our best work to the world because we're depleted. And even if you think you are killing it at work, imagine if you could 10x that. That's what can happen when we get you out of that stress response. That is what can happen when you start to define success on your terms. And I'm really taking a stand for that, which is why I am offering this discount, but only if you take action right away, because I don't want you to think about it and then not do it or say you'll do it later. I really want to encourage you to make a difference for yourself and everyone in your life right now. And, if you're thinking, I don't know, do I really need this? Think about where you are 2 months from now, which is 8 weeks. Would you like to still be where you are right now? Or would you like to be somewhere better? And if your answer is you'd like to be somewhere better, if you have found those things you want to say goodbye to, if you found those things you've been tolerating that you want to change, if you want to implement those better habits, that is what this course is absolutely designed to do. So again, go to architectingpodcast.com and you will find the link. And I really can't wait to work with all of you. I'm so excited to have you in the class. And we will be starting in just a couple weeks after this. So it's starting soon. And I look forward to having every one of you there. So take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Really think about some of the things that we talked about today and the changes you could make. And again, if you got what you needed today and you feel good about it, that's what this was designed to do. So I am so glad you were here and you got it. But if on the other hand, you're saying, I want to take this further, I want to do more, make sure you get into the Stressless Success class. All right, everyone, take care. Bye.